Hey there, friends. I thought I'd share with you today a project that my 4th grade students have just wrapped up. It was a teamwork challenge where they had to create a work of art that would work together as a team and would be compositionally sound, and each individual piece would also stand on its own and also be compositionally sound. I think I could do a much better job explaining this to you if we went through the steps together, so let's get started. Once students chose their teams, then each was given a sheet of paper. Like I said, they worked in teams of 4, so you can see I have 4 sheets of black construction paper here. After they had written their name and teacher code on the back, the students were given a roll of tape, and they were instructed to put a small, tiny bit of tape just in the north, south, east, and west, and that was just to help them kind of tack the paper in place, but I didn't want them to use such a big piece that it would tear once they removed the tape, since the tape was temporary. And after those pieces were there, then we had a stack of crayon templates. These are just crayon shapes that I have cut out of a piece of tag board. The reason we use templates is because our focus was on creating a good composition and learning about value and shading. Our focus was not on drawing crayons, so that's why the templates were used. Each child was told that they had to have at least 3 crayons in their own individual space. It didn't matter if they used more, but they had to create a composition that was interesting. It was to look like they had just spilled a box of crayons. We talked about overlapping. We talked about rhythm and movement and how to make your composition interesting to look at, and how it shouldn't be just segmented, but it should also all work together. So once those crayons were in place and the team was happy with their composition, then they started to trace. We used white pencils and silver pencils. Tracing can be a little bit tricky. You have to be careful as you trace because you need to imagine what crayons are overlapping the others. Right now I am imagining that this crayon is under this one. So when I get to this crayon, which is on top, it is overlapping the one underneath. I'm going to hop and then continue. I'm also going to pretend that this crayon that's underneath is being overlapped by this one. So again, I hopped over that crayon and then continued. Then I can remove that crayon and work on the one that's on top that was overlapping. And once as a team, each crayon has been traced, then you need to start working on the paper that is on the crayon. In fact, just to show you, I'm going to remove this one. There we go. Now, let's talk about how to draw the paper of the crayon. I'm going to scoot you over a little bit so you can see a little bit better and zoom you in because this part might be a little tricky. There we go. So we want these crayons not to be 2-dimensional, but to have the appearance or the optical illusion that they are 3-dimensional. To do that, we're going to add the paper portion, and that paper is going to help us create the illusion that the crayon is popping out. There's a curved line here because your crayon, with the exception of the top, is shaped like a cylinder. So I'm going to use my finger as a measuring tool, and I want the paper to start 1 finger up from the bottom. This curve I'm about to create has to be parallel or the same as the bottom curve. So I'm holding this here, moving it up, connecting my dots. That's the bottom of my crayon. Now, crayons have designs on them. So to create that, I'm going to use 3 fingers. You could use your whole hand. And I'm creating a dot. My 3 fingers are my measuring tool. Connecting the dots, again, my line has to run parallel with the bottom in order for this optical illusion to work. Now, Crayola crayons have a design, kind of like a waved line. So I can draw that. And it's 2 lines actually, so I'm making one that again is parallel. And now I need to add the paper at the top. So those 2 points right here, I'm going to pull my crayon up from the bottom, connect those 2 points, measure just like the bottom, 1 finger down, connect, making sure the curved line that I'm tracing is again parallel. It's like you knew what I was going to say. Mind readers. All right, I'm connecting these. Now, if you want to get super fancy town and you want to add that oval in the middle, or you want to do something special to that crayon, I say go for it. However, before you go for it, you need to chat with your team. Make sure you don't go rogue. You got to work on this as a team together. All right, let's talk about shading. Now, since this is a team project, you need to work with your teammates and decide what color these crayons will be. You can't just decide on your own that you want this to be a purple crayon and not chat with your friends. You need to make sure that they're okay with the fact that this is all going to be a purple crayon since it affects everybody's piece of paper. You also need to think about how many other purple crayons will there be so that you have a variety of other colors. Once you've settled on a color, what my students did was they just put a letter right there. I'm putting a P for purple, so they would remember what color they had decided upon. Because if you move somewhere else in the room or somebody's absent that day, it might get a little bit confusing. Now, we used chalk for this project, so you need to pick out colors of chalk that are what's called monochromatic. So I have picked out dark purple, magenta purple, and kind of a lilac purple. It looks white almost, and white. These are going to be what I will use to create a shade and create a three-dimensional look for my crayon. So I want it to appear as though the center part of my crayon is coming forward and the sides are receding or going back. When something is receding, it's usually darker. So I'm going to start with my dark purple. And I'm just doing kind of like a tight zigzag. I'm staying in my lines, but I'm not too worried about it. I'm skipping this and only coloring the wave in the bottom. Skipping that, only coloring the wave. Of course, now look, I just drew on another person's paper. That's going to be their responsibility, but to show you what I'm doing, I'm drawing and coloring on the whole thing. All right, I'm doing dark on the sides because we're trying to show that it's receding or going back into space with my tight zigzag line. At this point, tape needs to be removed so that you can color it. Now, with a finger, I'm just going to create a circle motion. The cool thing about chalk is that you can blend. And when you smooth it in, you're also smoothing down all those dust particles. That way your artwork doesn't continue to smear when you're finished working on it. So now I've smoothed down the dark part. And now I'm going to gradually use colors that are lighter to bring this middle part forward. So I'm switching to my kind of like a lilac. It looks like white to you, I know, but it's more of a lilac color. And I'm doing that right beside the dark because I'm creating something called a gradation. I'm going from dark to light gradually. I don't want it to appear as though it has a big stripe. I want it to look as though it goes from dark to light gradually. Now the last color I'm going to use is I'm going to use white, and the white will really make the center part pop. So I've got my white oil pastel. I'm sorry, it's not an oil pastel, chalk pastel. Coloring right down the middle and all those extra spots I missed. And then my final step, blend that all in. Now, when your crayon is finished, to really make it stand out, I like to use my white chalk and use it to outline all of my pencil lines, and that will really help my crayon pop. So I'm going back and I'm outlining all of my lines. And of course, this is my neighbor's paper, so they would be doing all the work on this one. It's a really good idea every now and then to have your team come together and put your pictures together to make sure everything is matched up. And there you have it.